Good afternoon. I'm Lillian Lodge Kopenhaver, Executive Director of the Kopenhaver Center for the Advancement of Women in Communication. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our Leadership Webinar Series. The mission of our center is to empower young women professionals and academics in all the fields of communication to develop visionaries and leaders who can make a difference in their professions and in their communities. We are delighted to have joining us today for our webinar, Speak Up and Take the Lead, Nancy Ancrum, the editorial page editor of the Miami Herald. A native New Yorker, Nancy has worked at the Miami Herald since 1983, a total of 34 years.
Don't add it up for her.
She's a veteran. She's a graduate of New York University and began her career at the Baltimore Evening Sun in Maryland. Before becoming a member of the editorial board of the Miami Herald in 1990, she worked as an assistant city editor in the newspaper's newsroom. Following her presentation, and if you have any questions during it, she's welcoming questions from you, but she will take questions following her presentation. It is my pleasure to present Nancy Ancrum.
Thank you so much for coming on this freezing day. This weather is just, I had to break out sweaters and everything. And I really appreciate being asked. I'm really honored to have the opportunity to talk to you. And I do really hope that I leave you with some things of value. Clearly, I don't know it all, even though it seems like I've been in this business forever as we added up the years. And what I did was put out questions to men and women of accomplishment who are leaders in their own fields, not all communications. I do think that there's a lot of cross-knowledge that we can share with each other and wisdom. And I'm really going to base my presentation on their responses and then weave in a lot of my little, my experiences also. And really, again, I hope to leave you with something of value and something that you can take with you and something that you can enact short-term and also over the long term of your careers. So I'm going to just kick it off. You can be a leader and not the boss. Being a leader means that you are committed to the task at hand. You are committed to seeing it through. You are also committed to making a credible case for not seeing it through because it's not the greatest idea. You are committed to first listening. And then you are also committed to making sure that people leave your conversation feeling enlightened and empowered, not belittled. That is the way to be a leader. As I said, I asked a bunch of accomplished men and women how they view leadership. In many ways, men and women are perceived to have different leadership style. One man's assertiveness too often is one woman's pushiness. But still, I wanted a diversity of views because, believe it or not, I don't know it all. And the responses conveniently broke down into really three main issues. So I'm going to just start. This headline is Be the Solution. This is what one acquaintance wrote. This is from a woman who founded what she calls a social impact accelerator. Her business, her firm, confronts some of the community's most pressing challenges, and it is invested in finding solutions. So here's what she said, and I'm now quoting her. My colleagues and I noticed that a surprising number of panels in South Florida were featuring an entire panel of men without any women represented. We began reaching out to the organizers with kind emails saying, we noticed that you may need help diversifying your panel on X. Can we help you identify a great female candidate? We have received an overwhelmingly positive response. I think that the positive, judgment-free, solution-oriented, we can help you tone helped. We now have a Facebook group with hundreds of local executive women in it, and anytime we see a panel without women, we punt it to the group for someone to step up. Be the solution. And here's one more. Talk is cheap, This comes from another woman. She works for a fundraising organization that disperses money to a lot of socially aware organizations to help people in need. Talk is cheap. I like to do and show when I think something's not going as it should. Seems like too often folks complain rather than take action to try to fix it. My advice, do your homework, have the info, understand the upside and the unintended consequences of desired action. If things don't go as planned, acknowledge, fix, learn, change, and keep going. Then she added this wonderful anecdote from a real boo-boo on her behalf, on her part. I once had $1 million donor, who sent me a new picture for our recognition book. We used an old picture by mistake. Donor freaked out. Said that we, and I, was careless and that we would never get any money from him again. I apologized and he just got more abusive. This guy sounds pretty petty. Got more abusive. There was no pacifying him. He wouldn't see me. I said, please don't penalize the community because of my error. And then she puts in parentheses, oh, did I mention it was the error of the administrator who didn't change the picture? And when I proofed the book, I was looking at the words, not the photos. It's interesting here that as a leader, the buck stopped with her. She didn't blame someone else, though someone else was to blame. Anyway, I took his old photo, burned it, put it in foil with a rock star quality apology note, and had it couriered to him. Got a call immediately. He was shocked, and he was sure we'd never make the same mistake again. I was forgiven. He's still an amazing supporter and loves me. He knows I'll own my mistakes, work to fix them, and move forward. I love that story. I just love that story. I'm going to kick that out to you. What's your takeaway from these two anecdotes that you've heard? Guys, you're in communications. Come on. Go ahead.
I walked in a little late, so I only heard the last part of it.
Well, the last part, let me just tell you where I started. These are anecdotes that I have headed Be the Solution.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
The very fact that she took blame for something
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't her fault, even though she's the leader, shows that she has initiative and that she took initiative and that she actually cares that he was upset. Not that she was just like, that's his problem, I don't care if he was mad.
Mhm.
She cared because not just because he was a donor, but because he believed in the work that they did. That's why he even gave the money to begin with.
Right.
And then that she went out a step further and proved to him, I will never let this happen again,
Mhm.
and gained his trust back. That's what a leader's supposed to do. And that's not something easy to do because you have to swallow your pride.
Right, right, absolutely. Anyone else? I was really impressed that even though she was the target, she put the needs of the community that she's committed to helping above her ego, above her feelings, above placing blame elsewhere. As a leader, and I think I am a leader sometimes at work, I take blame for something that maybe a subordinate has done. I don't throw people under the bus. And I think that too is a real sign of being able to take it, being able to, well, this was a clear up a mistake. This was a mistake. But sometimes it's not a mistake, sometimes it's a difference in judgment. It's not wrong, but perhaps your supervisor or your boss doesn't quite see it as right either. So you need to really make a case for that. And there's another example further down. I hear me. Should I stop talking? I should keep going? You need to manage up, but you also need to manage down. And if people who are working under you are really doing a good job, really diligent, really doing their best, don't throw them under the bus as you manage up. Just take it. What's the worst that can happen? Well, let's not go there. But let's not go there. But you know, it is, you want to stay true to yourself. Whether you're a manager or whether you're working, you know, 3 or 4 positions under. You need to be true to yourself. And go, I often say go with your gut. There are times when I don't go with my gut and it just screws things up. Go with your gut, as long as you can trust your gut. Any other comments on that? No? Here's another headline that I got. Oh, you know what? I also got another that I didn't include here, but I did get another response from a woman who was just starting out in IT. And she said they put out like crappy quality software. And she was able to convey what she saw as a solution. And her supervisor said, nah, not gonna work. Yeah, get out of here. And that's what she did. She left. She was young enough in her career. She felt very comfortable moving somewhere else. And she moved to another firm that dealt with software quality. She learned an awful lot. The first company imploded in like 3 years, went out of business, you know. So she was able to get a good I told you so. It doesn't always work like that, but she was able to get a good I told you so. Don't say I told you so too much either, unless sometimes it feels good though. You know, say it not in those words, but I foretold that, didn't I? Here's the other headline, another headline, speak your truth. Take things in, now let's see who said this, I'm sorry. Take things in and speak the truth with truth and integrity. Don't take things personally. When you are unsure, ask, even if you think it's a stupid question. Someone else is asking themselves the same or something similar. That's true. Because they will come up afterwards and say, oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. And, you know, my retort is, well, why didn't you speak up in there, you know? Do not hold things in, but do not be overly emotional. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. That's the only way to overcome what some may call the fear of confrontation. And let me just stop here. Confrontation is not a bad thing. It's not a bad word. And confrontation does not mean you're yelling and screaming or someone's crying or pushing back. Confrontation does mean stating your case. It can be a conversation. It doesn't have to be ugly. It can be uplifting. It can be educational for both sides. It can be win-win, you know. And as a matter of fact, I don't like the word confrontation because I think it does have connotations of hostility. She says, this woman owns her own marketing firm. Actually, she puts together events for businesses. That's what she does. Be open to learning. If you disagree, say so, but be prepared to defend your position. And if you can't come to an agreement, then know that it's okay to agree to disagree. It's also good to know that you might not be right. You need to be able to gauge the quality of leadership that you're working under. You may come across people who are in leadership positions who don't have your best interests at heart, who might feel threatened by you, who might feel insecure in their own positions. You need to learn the difference between someone who has your best interests at heart. It might not mean they're the nicest person or are smiling all the time, but that they're not out to actively hurt you or to keep you from progressing. And you need to learn the difference between that and someone who perhaps either should not be in that position or for whom you shouldn't be working for, and from whom you might need to separate, you know. There are no hard and fast rules. Go with your gut. You need to really gauge what the quality of your conversations with this person is. Is this person a bully? Does this person use bullying to put you down? And you don't want to be that kind of leader either. Or is this person assertive, kind of aggressive, kind of mouthy, but doing so because he or she wants me to do my best? You gotta learn the difference. You gotta learn the difference. Most important, have an open mind. Know that we can all learn from each other. She says also, if I may add that this has not always worked for me. At times, the perceptions have been that I am confrontational, and therefore people would avoid me because they know I would always speak the truth. I would urge you to, take what she says and realize you're not necessarily speaking the truth, you're speaking your truth. And someone else has their truth. And so I would encourage you to find a way to work through your truths. Facts always help. Facts always help. Numbers help. Statistics help. Pointing out where, we did it this way a couple times and the results still sucked, or the results weren't quite what we wanted. That's your truth, but it might also be a fact that you can back up. And I think that is the best way to take the lead. I think that's the best way to speak up. It's great to speak with passion, but it's always great to have past practice and facts on your side. Okay? As I said at the outset, you don't have to be the boss to be a leader. You can be a leader in whatever position you hold, and people will see your potential as that leader. This is another one. What's the heading here? Speak your truth. Oh, this is another one. This is a good one. And then think about, because I'm going to throw the questions out to you, because actually, you know what? I'm kind of coming to the end of my prepared remarks. I'm going to speak slowly. This is from someone else. This is from the woman who has the Social Impact Accelerator. She had two really good, two good anecdotes. She's the one who came up with how to get more women on panels. Here's what she said. I recently had a male friend launch a campaign celebrating women. But in the end, it seemed it was kind of a PR stunt to bring positive attention to his company. It offended many of the participants who were kind of used for their names and networks and who didn't really feel celebrated at all. Some of the PR materials were actually quite objectifying. Quote, women are like art. They help you access the divine. I mean, I confronted the friend and explained why comparing an entire gender or any group of people to an inanimate object, or saying that any group of people serve to help other people achieve some desired outcome is objectifying. He did not appreciate my feedback at first and really argued with me. After a very painful 30-minute conversation about the campaign, he understood my feedback and revised some of the PR materials, but I left feeling like I had been dragged through a deposition to prove the validity of my feedback. It was not a positive experience. While I don't regret it, I think it soured the relationship, not on his end, but on mine. Sometimes not being heard graciously sends a message about the listener. I really like that one. I'm going to throw it back out to you. How do you see speaking your truth? Give me some anecdotes maybe as to where it worked for you in a work setting or in school, because school is just prepping you for that work setting. Where it may have worked for you, where it may have crashed and burned. What's your thinking here?
I actually have a quick question about being confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
How can you confront somebody without them thinking that you're being pushy or you're being judgy, because I feel like a lot of times when you confront a person about a problem, they immediately take it the wrong way.
They do.
Instead of like listen. So how can you go up to somebody and have like a positive back and forth?
Right. That the person becomes defensive is on them. Okay? That's on them. However, you want to make sure that your speaking sticks to the issue, isn't personalized. It's a matter of tone. This is for men and women. I mean, it's a matter of tone. You're not in their face. You're not maybe towering over them as they sit down. You're sitting with them. Also, take control of the environment. If this is following up on another conversation where you realize, gee, not working, maybe pull the person aside, sit down with them away from people maybe, and talk about your concerns and how your concerns are, you're not taking them personally either, unless it was something personal, things happen, but how it affects and may not be the best way to help the business, to help the task that you've been tasked with accomplishing. And don't make it about them. I think when you use constantly, you said, you did, it's like a finger in the chest. Not your problem, it's how they're taking it. You also want to pull them aside and maybe tease out where that person is coming from. And if that person feels he or she has had a good hearing, they might hear you differently, okay? Keep an even tone. Keep an even tone, though you really want to punch the guy in the face. but just keep an even tone, because again, you have to figure out what you're most committed to. And I would hope you would work your way to be committed not to being right, though that is also a commitment, but to providing some illumination to this person, though, so that she doesn't do it again. She sees your point. It is work. It is work. It's not a piece of cake. And what you really will have to confront is your reluctance to do it. That's the real confrontation. That's the real confrontation. And as the woman who wrote the last anecdote said, she felt like she'd been dragged through the mud. This was a particularly sticky one, I suspect, it sounds like. But and also don't be reluctant to grant the other person some points or some credit, especially if it doesn't have to do with offending a whole gender, offending a whole race or group or something like that. That, stick to your guns there. But give other people some credit too. Give other people some credit. Give him or her some points. If it works, if they do have a good point, but stick to your point also. And you might come to some, kumbaya moment, You also might, as she says here, agree to disagree. You might agree to disagree, but it's a matter of tone. It's a matter of being a grown-up. Be a grown-up, confront your unwillingness to do it, and because you don't want to do it. I don't want to do things like that, Get your talking points together beforehand, too. So you are speaking fluidly, without a lot of ums and uhs and get your talking points together and then go for it. Go for it. But control the environment where you're going to do it, if you can, and it's you know, being a control freak, but for good, for good, yeah.
My question is about that last anecdote. Let's say in the event she was able to convince him, you know, and he made some changes to his campaign. But let's say she was dragged through the mud, all this stuff, and the result was still the same.
Right.
It didn't change. Then how could she have then tried to be a part of the solution? You know, like she
Right.
spoke her truth,
Right.
she stood her ground, she gave all her points. But
Right.
like, if it didn't work out, like,
Right.
what is there a way to resolve that?
There might not have been a way to salvage it. This might have been a person who, I don't want to, and I mean, we hear this all the time. This is what I believe, and I'm sticking to it.
Right.
It sounds as if, I mean, I think that this is a case where she might just have had to have said, I hear you, I disagree with you, you disagree with me, I'm going back to work, you know. And even though, and listen, remember, even though he did, it seemed, reluctantly agree to make some changes, she does say it ruptured the relationship on her part.
Yeah, left a bad taste in her mouth.
Yeah, right. He didn't walk away from the relationship, it sounds like, but she learned enough about him that it soured her on him and being in, you know, relationship with him. That happens too. Not everyone has to be in your life. And when someone does not share your values to the degree that you can't quite fathom continuing to do business or continuing to even be a friend, that too is life. You know, grow up. Grow up. Not everyone, as my mother said. My mother told me ages ago, I'm an only child, and she said, you know, people would come up to her or my father all the time and say, oh, you have an only child, she must be spoiled. And she said, I just tell them, look, we didn't raise them to believe that everyone's going to love you as much as we do. So, you know, not everyone's going to love you. You're not going to love everyone. That too. You know, and this isn't a snap judgment that she made. Clearly, she was willing to engage, and I give this guy credit. He was willing to engage too, to some degree. You know, he didn't just stalk off, but she learned enough about him that it sounds like there's going to be some distance, that she's willing to put some distance. You know, and so that too. You know, not everything has a nice red bow. Or a cherry on top, you know. What else? Anyone else? Yeah?
I think sometimes confrontation is inevitable in some instances like that, but it's also important, I think, to note that communication in a team setting beforehand can also prevent confrontations later.
Right.
Like if you ask a question, that can prevent a bigger mistake from happening in the future. Or if you're clear on the expectations from both parties, that can prevent a lot of confrontation.
Right.
In the future.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is a good idea. Someone in here said do your homework. You might be able to go into a meeting, go into a certain setting, knowing what needs to be accomplished, being familiar perhaps with what others are going to be saying so that you're not surprised, you're not sandbagged. And, you know, that takes just knowing the people you work with, you know. And, you know, we're in the business of communications, and communications don't always go easily, but we should be able to do it professionally, and we should be able to do it with integrity, and we should be able to do it understanding that we're not the only people in the room with an opinion, you know. So, yeah, I'm sorry.
If you have some sort of situation where you want to bring up, you know, the concern or the issue to your employer, like at that moment, but is it more professional to wait until, you know, you completed the task, or if you have some issues that you want to raise right then, like you can pull them aside, or what is your take on that?
Yeah, I think that you know, you need to gauge it, but if you think something is headed toward the wrong path, heading toward failure, definitely flag it sooner rather than later. one, you might really be right, and you'll need to make that case to help make a correction, definitely, because why do all that work, get to the end, and it's icky, That's a editorial board word, icky. Yes.
I think that standing your ground is very important, but something that ties in the previous conversation and this conversation is that unless it's something personal, I think it's important that when you're having that one-on-one conversation, as a leader, if you see yourself as a leader, if you want to try to be a leader, I think it's important to preach community.
Yeah.
As in, I've been in situations where I've talked to management about things that are happening, but I never make it personal.
Right.
I talk about my entire staff and people they're the same level as I am.
Right.
Because that way they kind of see it more this not just about just you in general, and sometimes if you do that and you don't preach the community, they might just kind of take it and fix things maybe towards just that one individual,
Right.
rather than fix it towards everybody else, and then you don't really get anything accomplished because then somebody else might come in and do the same thing,
Right.
have the same conversation. So I think that like I said, unless it's personal, unless it's something that you're trying to deal with there,
Right.
it's very important to preach community.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. I think that's a very good way to proceed, and that depersonalizes it, and you don't become the person who's the problem or the whiner or complaining, but you also become kind of a spokesperson, and you are taking the lead for a situation that other people are laboring under that might not be working for them either. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way to proceed. Anyone, oh, you were just yawning? No, I'm sorry. Okay, that's okay. No, I didn't take that personally. I know there were some questions that that might be coming from people who aren't here. Are there any of those? I don't see Lillian here. Oh, okay.
Let's keep it going.
All right, we're gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it going. This is the third heading. Getting credit. This is a long one, but this is a good one. Getting credit. This is from a woman who's a developer, and she builds buildings. This happened, she said, Boston a few years ago. She was in a volunteer position here. This was not as part of her profession. Working as a volunteer for a national nonprofit organization for suicide prevention, I was part of a subcommittee of development and fundraising. The committee was composed of 5 members, at that time 3 men and 2 women, including myself. At a special meeting, the agenda was to come up with new fundraising ideas for the following year. I proposed to hold an art show at our headquarters office, inviting locally known artists. Subcommittee members liked my idea and pre-approved the project. It was agreed that our chair and I would present the project to the main board for final approving the next week. To my surprise, the day after the subcommittee meeting, I received a call from our chair. He simply wanted to reiterate the value of the project and basically seemed to explain to me my own ideas in his own words. I just let him talk. The following week, as agreed, the chair and I went to the main headquarters to meet with the board members responsible for financing. The chair of our subcommittee proceeded to present the new project. As soon as I realized this, and his first part of the presentation was finished, I took the floor and blankly rephrased the project, giving credit to all members and myself. In addition, I politely put him down by expressing my gratitude to him for so clearly appreciating the value of my ideas to the point that he appropriated them for himself. In addition, I thanked him for his heap-eating call and was prepared for the main board meeting with graphics, charts, and all outlines, budget, and projections. The presentation ended up as a success for our subcommittee team without another word from the chair. It was a rewarding fundraiser. After this meeting, the chair came and apologized for his inappropriate behavior and expressed his appreciation for my professionalism, and at that point always showed me esteem and respect. This was a success. Okay, what's your thinking about this? Could you do what she did? And I'm asking everyone, not just women. I'm asking men, because men have good ideas and they get stolen too. Could you do what she did? And talk about the circumstances of what she did. Anyone?
I think it
You-
takes like a level of camaraderie and respect for
Mhm.
each other. I think that like maybe they probably had like maybe some kind of like, a good relationship or something like that. Either
Mhm.
that or she's just really really professional.
Mm-hmm.
Because it might be difficult for somebody starting up to do that because
Mhm.
like this you feel like this is your idea, this is your baby, this
Mhm.
is like this could be my breakthrough, and then somebody else is taking advantage of it. You
Mhm.
know? But I think she handled it,
Mm-hmm.
as well as anyone could handle it. So
Yeah.
somebody who thinks they can't handle it, maybe hearing something like that could kind of give them another out as to how to handle a situation.
Sure.
like that.
Sure. I thought it was nice, passive aggressive. I like that stuff. You had a.
Yeah, I agree with the passive aggressive. I think she definitely, you have to be very level-headed and kind of think before you do or you respond.
Mm-hmm.
And also like not make it about you, but about the idea.
Mhm.
So I don't think she kind of didn't focus on how he stole it from her, but just on how the idea is so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So well put.
Right. Right. What? Anyone other comment? Yeah.
She was very shrewd at taking the idea and then not saying, not just that it was hers, she said, it's everybody's idea.
Mm-hmm.
All
Right.
of us together brought it in.
Right.
And instead of just saying, waiting till after they confront him and say, why did you take my idea? She said, I'm going to take initiative now, and she even had proof to back it up.
Right.
And because she had all that proof and all the outlines and the plan for it, nobody was going to question that was her idea.
Right. Exactly.
Nobody was going to question her
Mhm.
saying, you're just saying this because it was a good idea and now you want the glory.
Right.
And she proved to everybody, like, yes, this was mine,
Mm-hmm.
and he did take it. But she also wasn't immature about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the very fact that he went up to her afterwards proves that he learned his lesson.
Right. Right.
And
Exactly.
more respect for her.
Exactly. One thing I would like to point out, this is a woman, I would say she's in her 60s perhaps, so she clearly is experienced. This also was a volunteer position, so it's not like she was going to get fired. She was in a different position than I'd say we are, working for employees, working for employers who, write sign our paychecks. And so I want you to take that into consideration too, but I do want to throw out to you, if this had happened to you, perhaps a peer, someone who's a colleague who has the same title as you, does the same job as you, did this. What would you be able to say? What do you think you could say that could have a similar outcome? Make sure that the people in the room understood that, you had this idea, perhaps you just spoke this idea, and someone over here seems to be running with it, saying, I a lot. You might not be able to do what she did. What could you say? And I'm asking because I'd love to know. What could you say?
I'm a hot-headed person, so I would have probably calmed myself down, especially if there was a job on the line. But I think what would have happened probably if I heard that person saying, my idea in front of a whole group of people, I'm asking you, like, would it have been better for me, since I'm not a volunteer or whatever, after the presentation, if I went to a superior, like someone in the board, and I would have said, listen, this is all my stuff, but is that throwing that person under the bus? Even though they kind of deserve it.
Well, they kind of threw you under the bus. They kind of threw you under the bus in front of all of these people.
Exactly.
I like the idea of settling it right then and there. But how do you do that? I mean, really, how do you do that
I don't think I would have the grace or the
gently?
in that moment.
You need to do it with, that's a good word, you do need to do it with resolve and with grace. I believe in putting that person back in his or her place, but without you looking bad, you know? So think about that one. How would you do that? I see a hand there.
I mean, this situation, not verbatim, but it has happened to me.
Yeah.
Someone stole my idea
Yeah.
in front of a crowd.
Mhm.
And I mean, that the lady who resolved it was much more calm than I was. But maybe simply just, I mean, speaking from experience from what I did, simply raising your hand, and because it's your idea, you know all the details and you know like everything about it. So when the person is up there, you know, talking about it, knowing it's your idea, just simply raising your hand and, oh, do you mind if I take over? You're forgetting a few things, and then you go in and explain it in explicit detail exactly what your idea is, and then maybe not confronting the person in front of everybody because you don't want the person to feel offended or you know, some type of way, but maybe after when everyone's gone, you know, speaking to them one by one and, hey, if this is my idea, do you mind just...
I believe in taking back control. You know, and especially, you don't want to stand up and say, well, that was my idea. You know, it helps if you have already presented that idea to that group of people. For instance, in this anecdote, he was able to take advantage of the fact that she presented her idea at another meeting back then, so, you know, nobody really knew. But if you have presented, and this has happened to me, if you've presented your idea and at that same meeting or in front of those people, and someone comes along and hijacks it, you can definitely thank them for building upon my idea, and let me add this information. You know, you can do that calmly, gracefully. You can even do it with a smile. You know, if it happened, if you presented your idea in another venue at another time, and then someone is presenting it, that's a little stickier wicket. You might be able to say, you know, raise your hand, whatever. Yes, we talked about this idea when I brought it up last week, and and I have additional invitation to, you know, further make you all understand that basically it's my idea. You know, it can be dicey, but you definitely want to keep your calm. Because otherwise you're going to look really bad. You're just going to it's going to be on you. Oh God, did you see how he you know, acted up or blew up or her head exploded or whatever. Depending upon the result, yeah, going to the person and having that calm, confrontational conversation one-on-one, that might work afterwards. That might work out. It might not. I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. But you got to go with your gut and read it. You need to read it. This is when you need to know your audience, when you need to know the people you work with, and how you're seen and going to be seen. But calmer always works better than enraged. Go ahead. I saw. No, go ahead. Follow.
Question for you. Would you react the same way if, for example, you spoke with your, like the speaker who's elaborating on your idea, let's say you only spoke your idea with them, not with the rest of the people in the room, so the rest of the people are thinking that it's the speaker's idea, and only the speaker knows that it's your idea.
Right.
Would you still confront the situation the same way?
You know, if as a member, as a part of this meeting, you know, others had a chance to talk, I think I would go with yes, he and I, or she and I talked about this last week, and I brought up the fact that X, Y, and Z would be a good idea. You know, you don't want to just say, well, that was my idea. you know, but you need to really work with words. You're in communications, so you know how to work with words, you know. Figure out the words that you're comfortable with that really make clear this was your idea, without saying, that guy stole my idea, you know. Try it. You had a question there?
So, would you say that the underlying theme of all these anecdotes would be professionalism, being very, like,
Yeah.
even no matter if the situation is, you know,
Yeah.
sort
I
of
mean,
intense, just professionalism is key on our side. On our
yeah. And I even think it's even better to, if someone is getting heated and yelling, or, you know, and I don't have this, I really don't have this experience at work, I just don't, but you never know. If someone's getting overheated, the calmer and lower your voice, the more people will listen to you and the more you look like the adult. As they say, when you argue with a fool, people have difficulty after a while telling the difference. You know, who's the fool here? So, you know, I think so. I think so. I would opt for professionalism and a calm tone. It doesn't mean you're not speaking with passion. It doesn't mean you're not going to kind of break out in a little bit of a sweat. But you remain control by remaining in control. You know, and addressing, keeping the focus on the issue and the challenge that need to be solved. Mm-hmm.
One of like my first jobs, I was probably like 18 or 19,
Mhm.
and I was kind of managing like a little department. Like I was given a lot of responsibility, and they were paying me very little for it. And my boss would always like come to me to like look over his emails or whatever and consult me and I remember I gave him an idea like for scheduling to kind of like save on overtime.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that he presented it completely like, oh, this is my solution. And he's my boss, so like what am I gonna say? Like it's
right.
my job. Is it my job to like mill him like these ideas and he's supposed to just
Right.
It bothered me, but I was like, I don't know how, like I have no right really. Do I have a right to that?
No, you know what? I will let that one go, but go to the boss and say, I'm so glad you found my idea worthwhile. And that's it. Then that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, just go on your way, you know.
Right.
And then give him a
This was long time
smile.
ago, but like things like that sometimes happen, like where your boss like takes
Right.
your idea and stuff, and it's just kind of
Yeah, given that it was you were young,
Yeah.
it's one of the first jobs, you don't have a lot of muscle to, it wasn't a peer.
No, it was a boss.
Yeah, you know, just say you're glad that, you know, you could be of help
Right.
or service or something like that, you know. Let's see. We're coming up. Oh dear. Well, here, I'm going to pass on now some tips. This same woman, this same passive-aggressive woman, wanted me to make sure to pass these on to you. Be confident, be prepared, be knowledgeable, be polite and always clear in your position. Be determined that no one takes advantage of you. Smiling with authority works better than keeping silent with insecurity. I kind of like that. And then I'm going to add these last few. I would add this. Learn the leadership style of your leader, how she wants to hear things. I have a habit of, I'm really chatty. My previous boss was really chatty. Chatty. She was the flighty one. I didn't think she was flighty. It was just, you know, someone thought she was flighty. And so when we talked together, we were both chatty and, you know, we kind of looped our way to the point of the conversation, which was fine. It worked, you know. I understood her. She made her point eventually. I made my point eventually, and it was all cool. New boss. She moved on. She got a promotion. New boss. Slightly bigger boss. I learned quickly that chatty doesn't work. Oh, and da-da-da-da-da, and I'd give anecdotes, and I'd be funny, and I'd give little, little humorous, no. And I didn't learn that from anything that, that the new boss said. I learned it from her body language and her expression. And I thought I was being entertaining while I was making my point, and her face was like that. And I was smart enough to realize I'm wasting her time. This is a busy woman. I'm wasting her time. She's not quite clear on what I was saying because I wasn't clear on what I was saying to her, and I didn't speak it the way she needs to hear it so she can move on. So I've gotten real better at it. I'm not perfect yet. I have to tamp down those chatty tendencies, but I'm getting there. But learn the leadership style of your leader so that she just understand what the tolerance is and isn't for how you present yourself and your ideas. Your job is not to make people feel belittled and unworthy. Your job is to educate, enlighten, and to be straight with them. Sometimes as a leader, and not the boss, but sometimes just as someone who has a task to carry out and maybe has others on the team, but you've kind of established yourself as the go-to person. I say here, sometimes you are the go-between, the translator, the boss whisperer. And you've got to translate what another leader's expectations are to another group of people. I have, and you need to do it in a way that leaves people, I think, feeling uplifted and enthusiastic about the task. I heard an anecdote. There was a highly placed editor speaking to a mid-level manager about a big story. This manager, mid-level, wanted to send an intern to cover this story. And the highly placed editor said, "Oi, you sure you want to do that?" And the mid-level manager, does this person really have the chops to do it? This person's an intern and has not done a lot. Manager assigned the story to the intern. The intern hit it out of the park. Great intern. Yay, intern. Wonderful. The summer passed, the intern's tenure was up, and he wrote the highly placed editor a thank you note for, his time there, and had a great time. And then there was this line: "Even though I know that you didn't think I could do that story, I really appreciate blah, 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 blah." What seems wrong here?
The pettiness.
What seems wrong here?
He's calling them out.
Well, the intern, who really didn't do anything wrong, that's a nice note, It was a nice note. I don't think that the intern was writing out of maliciousness or pettiness or anything. I think that mid-level manager should never have said, "Well, the boss thinks you're going to screw this up." Who sends someone out on an assignment, no matter whether it's in communications or anything, with we don't have high expectations. Someone doesn't have high expectations of you. Okay. Enough said. You are the translator, but but translate it in a way that leaves people, uplifted. Oh, here. You know how you have that kind of confrontational, or you have that conversation maybe even, or it's a meeting or whatever, And you have that facepalm moment like an hour later when you say, oh my God, you know what I should have said? This is what I should have said. Well, don't be afraid to revisit it. Pick a time, go back to that person. If a decision hasn't been made, go back to that person, sit down and say, you know what, this is what I really was trying to say. That works, that really does work. You're out of that heated situation, you're out of that situation, you know, and if you really do have that good point to make, don't let it go to waste. Go back before you forget it again, because you're going to forget it again, so, you know. And let me leave you, I'm going to leave you with the words of a successful businessman who runs his own organization to build, to help businesses build and empower wealth and whatnot. And he said this specifically for this class, he wanted you to hear this. He says that he leads by the force of his ideas, not the strength of his authority. I kind of like that. He said, I lead by the force of my ideas, not the strength of my authority. And with that, I leave you all to go and lead something somewhere. And I hope that you do take away some good ideas for how you can proceed and how you can be a leader right now. And if not a leader, someone who at least speaks up and makes, her ideas, makes his ideas really known and of value to where you work. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
You are welcome.
Really great presentation, and I hope that you all learned something that you can take back as you go out in your careers, because you're going to be starting your careers. So remember, even though you may be starting on a low level, you can still speak up and have your voices heard. That's important. So always remember that. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.